Guys, I want to get loud all of a sudden.
Do it.
Sorry, I'm gonna.
It's you. I knew it was coming.
I'm sorry, guys,
Can't
but I
hold 'em
need
back.
to do that.
It is. You feel like Poseidon chucking that bugger down in the water.
Sucking that bugger. Did you butt out that deer?
I did not butt out that deer, but the next one I get, it's getting its butt out.
Is that little Stevie out here in the back?
Drobop. Bow drop, I'm sorry. Drobop. Hello. Stay tuned. I'll be back after my seizure.
Every little chipmunk that was running around, everything's dead quiet, and I went like that. Just happened.
I saw what is in essence a nature-gasm.
All right, we are back, guys. Welcome to the Rutten River Pursuit podcast, sitting around the Sonic Campfire. Gentlemen, we got a show for you tonight. All right, before we get into the guests, though, who do we got around the table?
I'm Catfish.
I'm Dave.
I'm Steve. I'm Will.
And it's Uncle Buck.
Hey, Uncle Buck. So it's Ryan. I'm pretty sure I said who I was.
You didn't.
I didn't. I skipped
That's
over
for
that.
last.
See,
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I am looking forward to this.
You just can't hide it.
I'm telling you. No, I'm just excited to get to our guest.
Now I got you.
Because
Who's your guest, bud?
Let's get on with it, bud.
on the line, we've got with us Terry. And Terry's here from T Island Rods and Charters. Terry Sturgeon. Terry, how you doing, bud?
Doing great, guys. Appreciate you having me on tonight.
Oh, pleasure is ours, buddy.
Appreciate the time, bud.
And Terry is a new friend of the Rutten River Pursuit podcast, and a new friend that I was able to meet.
To exploit.
I
I got to stop you right there. I'm pulling a film.
Are we going to get into him conning me into shaving my beard? Is that what that's about?
Well, I was
Bless
just,
your heart.
I
Not
was
on
just
this
about to go
podcast.
into that.
I'm still not proud to claim that on the air either, Terry. I don't want to be any part about a man shaving.
I was going to try to clear the air here real quick, because it turns out now, give everybody a quick background story on this. We're hanging out with the guys at T Island Rods during the Great American Outdoor Show, talking to them for a couple of days and just having a good old time. And there we are at the end of the show one day, and everybody's talking about, oh, we had this bet. We were going to make Terry shave his beard if we hit this number. And, we only missed it by a little bit, so I went ahead and pulled out my card, and I said, well, give me one of them fishing rods so we can make sure Terry shaves that up.
What?
And Will was really mad at me.
Is this the rod you got at the Great American Outdoor Show?
It is.
The
Yeah.
one that I want.
Yeah.
And this is the guy. This is the guy we're talking to on
This
the
is,
phone.
this
And
is
it-
the poor feller that had to shave his beard.
And it caused a man to shave.
This is who all you guys were talking about the
The
whole
S
time.
word.
That nobody took me over to meet.
By the hog trough.
Terry,
Yeah, right at the hog trough.
Terry, I have some wonderful brothers. I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance.
I wanted to
Whoever-
take you over.
But let me tell you, I have seen and held this rod that Ryan has, and this is one of your rods. This
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Unless he stuck one of my stickers and stuck it on somebody else's rod. I'm pretty sure it's mine.
No, I think we went with, it was one of the spinning rods that you had there. I think it was the 743.
Oh no, don't worry, Terry. It's mine now. I got it. I know where he lives. I'll take it.
I just want to make sure somebody uses it. When Ryan said that he was going to buy it, it was really just to get me to shave my beard. I didn't even think he fished.
Well, he's still new to
He's
fishing.
an amateur.
We did have to show him which end of it the reel went on, so I knew something was up.
And did you have to explain that the reel goes on the underside with the spinning wheel?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Terry, if you had any conversations with Mike after Mike took us outside for the casting demo to look at your rods, he would be able to confirm, that Ryan guy has no idea what he's doing.
The T Allen rods are great, but they can't work miracles. That's
They're not called a magic cast.
They're fantastic, but it is not a magic wand.
No, unfortunately, it's not a magic wand, that's for sure.
7-foot magic wand.
But speaking of a magic wand,
Whoa.
by Merlin's beard,
They
they
are
are smooth.
They are smooth.
They are fantastically smooth.
Well,
Terry.
I think Stevie casted it like 195 yards, and how far did you
Sitting
make
down.
it?
I made it about 9.5 yards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Listen,
With a
and-
bird's nest.
And Terry,
birds nesting it up.
Terry, just so you're here when we do this, I just have to put out a little disclaimer. I mean, Mike went
Okay.
through the whole spiel, and he was doing the casting demo for us, and he was talking up, and we're going to get into the details of the rods and the microwave technology you guys have on these eyelets on these things. It's amazing, and I want to get into all of that, but I have to defend myself first.
no, you don't.
You know, he showed us all of this stuff, and he casted this thing about 6,000 feet. He took out a pizza delivery guy that was in a different township.
It was sitting in a van.
It was amazing. So then he hands me the rod and he goes, "Just try it, bud," or however he does in his Italian accent, his Floridian Italian guy.
Hey, I just tried it, bud.
Just to toss it out there. And I go to cast this thing, and I'm like, well, obviously I got to show everybody else that's out here how this works. So I rock it back, and I just come forward like I'm trying to just give it the business, and that's when it bounced off the ground.
You were trying to miss that beamer that was out in front.
You hit the pretzel truck, didn't you? Mike kept saying,
No,
Don't hit the pretzel truck.
don't hit that pretzel truck.
no
Don't hit the
vehicles
pretzel
or
truck."
no guys. People were injured in the casting demo.
Yes.
This is all.
Yeah.
Just the pretzel truck has a dent in it.
There-
Just
That was
kidding.
like the guy that Mike took somebody out. I forget who it was, and he starts backing up, and guy goes, "Where are you going?" And Mike goes, "Well, I don't want to hit the glass on that building, and the glass is on the second floor."
yeah.
And the guy just kind of looked at him and said, "Yeah, right." And Mike said, "No, really." And I think did he do his little bow and arrow thing where he pulls it back and shoots it?
Yep.
Yeah.
He did
It
that to
goes-
make me feel bad too, because after I tried to cast, then he was like, "Well, just do it like this."
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
slingshot it a little bit.
He's really good because he can show a kayaker how to fish and he doesn't have to sit down.
Oh, I feel like that might have been a short joke. And
And
Mike's not even-
I really wish he was here to hear that because
I'm sure he'll hear it. Yeah.
because it is very true. I mean, it's just he doesn't have to sit down to make those casts, so it works out really good.
I think we did.
But-
We end up joking saying that Ryan was just working on the drop shot feature there. And
yeah, that's all I was doing.
yeah, like he's just showing.
The power drop shot.
I was actually testing. I was testing the ability of these rods to punch through the mats.
Oh yeah.
You know, if I'm
That's what it is.
if I'm drop shotting and I need to punch through the mats,
Or 6 inches of ice.
No augers needed with these new T. Allen rods.
Self-drilling line.
all right.
All right, Terry. So, honestly, I did not get to come over and see your rods. Can you please tell me what makes them different?
Well, Doug Hannon came up with a guide called a microwave guide, not a micro, not a mini. A lot of people confuse the two. It's not a mini guide. It's actually a guide system. And I've been building rods for 30 years. It goes against everything that I've ever been taught or ever believed in. You never went smaller on a stripping guide on a spinner. You always went bigger.
So the stripping
And,
guide is the first guide up from the
First
reel,
guide.
right? Okay.
Yeah. And when he came up with this 30 years ago, he couldn't even sell it. But if you understand the engineering behind it, it makes perfect sense. I'm not an engineer, so it took me a while to get my head around it. But
We don't
once
trust
I did,
we don't trust engineers around here, Terry.
Yeah,
Ain't that right, Stevie?
None of them.
They're no good.
you got to watch them, man. You got to watch
Tell
them.
me about it.
They're going to slide something in on you. But it was funny. We had a guy at the show come up, and it was
That's a nurse's
physics major. He was a physics major, and he goes, "Oh, you don't tell me nothing. I understand this perfectly." And I go, "Well, good."
Yeah.
Okay. And he bought a rod, and I didn't have to even say anything to him. So,
Hey now.
I mean, he knew all of it. He knew how it worked. He understood it. But if people think that restricts the line, but what actually it does, it speeds the line up. and actually shoots it out the end of the rod. So that's why I couldn't get my head around it, because you're funneling something down to something smaller, and then because it's a restriction. I mean, the only reason that you went larger on the stripping guide was because of the loop coming off of it. You wanted to make sure that you could funnel it through.
Hey, Terry, so the normal stripping guide's about a 30 millimeter diameter.
25 or a 30, yeah.
Yeah. And now with this design, it's probably like 10, under 10?
It's right at 10, probably a 10 or a 12. I'd have to look at the specs, because now we've even came out with one that's larger than that for like some of the we're going to be coming out with a surf rod. I'm real picky about what I want to put my name on, so
right.
I've been kind of working on an 11-footer, but some of the guys that I've been talking to, they want the 13, 14-foot rods, and I just haven't found anything that I feel like is worth doing that. But the same technology, a shorter rod is going to cast further. Like, say, I've got a friend that he uses nothing but one-piece 13-foot bait casters.
One piece.
Well, one piece, and I actually took out, and I think I told Brian this. We threw a 4-ounce sinker 125 yards, and the only reason that I didn't throw it further was because it was going to go through the side of the trailer that was on the other side of the lake. So I actually had to stop it, or we'd have gone even further.
That's going to get over that sandbar when you're surf fishing pretty well.
There you go. And not only that, if you need that heavier weight, imagine, okay, and people go, well, you're throwing 4 ounces. I said, I bet you I could throw 2 ounces 100 yards or better. So the technology's there, and I never really thought that there would be anything in the fishing industry that, would change the fishing industry. My whole life I've been fishing. Everything's pretty much the same. We've come out with split grips. Well, the split grips actually, Mitchell came out with them in the 60s. So, I mean, none of that stuff is new. You just don't see anything new in the fishing industry. And when this came out, I kept thinking, this has got to be a novelty. It can't be something that's going to last.
And
now that's all I'm building.
It won ICAST in like 2016.
Well, it won. Not only I think it was 2016, but then they took it over to Europe, and they won in Europe, and then they won in China with it too. They actually won 3 awards with that guide. Believe it or not, it's the most expensive guide to make because of how it's designed. And but like I was telling a buddy of mine a few days ago, I said, I really believe that there won't be a rod manufacturer that won't at least have 3 or 4 of these rods with those guides on it. Yeah. They're just, I mean, the technology, why, it's like, I may have told Ryan, I may have told you this about the muscle car,
Oh, yeah.
I don't need that power all the time, but it sure is nice to know it's there when I need it.
Exactly.
If I need to make a 100-yard cast, I think if I have the right bait on, that's exactly what I'm going to be able to do. But it'll increase your distance between 10 and 15%, and it makes you more accurate because there's nothing to catch air. It's a streamline coming out. So that's, like I said, the engineering behind it, on a loop, there's a top and a bottom. And if you understand that technology, that when one side hits, the other side is coming through, they're the same force. They zero each other out. The only other force is going at the end of the rod, and it pulls the line straight. So you have less wind knots. And that was really what Doug came to me, and I didn't even know Doug Hannon. A lot of people probably aren't familiar with the Bass Professor, but growing up, Doug Hannon was probably one of the most well-known guys. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records still today. I think he's got 300 bass over 10 pounds.
Wow.
I mean, it's phenomenal. And this guy was a very, very intelligent man. And he was his mind was constantly working on, he wanted everybody to be able to fish no matter whether you were a novice or a professional, pick up one of his rods or one of his reels and be able to, use it immediately and not have to, okay, well, I got to work at this a little bit to figure this out. I mean, how many times you guys, I do this all the time. We buy a bait, we put it on a rod, and we throw that bait, and the bait does not do what we think it should. So we're not going to throw it if we don't have confidence in it.
Right.
Well, same way with your equipment. People don't want to spend that money for good equipment, but they don't realize what they're missing. The sensitivity of these rods, I got a buddy of mine told me, he said, I can feel a gnat if he lands on the end of that rod.
Well, and Terry, I don't want to stop you there, but that was one of the things when you said about sensitivity. That was one of the things that it really stuck in my mind, and I was like, I got to make Terry shave his beard for this. Right before Mike took us outside to do the casting demo, he did this deal where I held the handle of one of your 7-foot rods, and he put the tip of that rod right up like Will, you're a nurse. You're the larynx.
I'm not a nurse.
I'm trying to help you out, bud. Physicians.
Is he also the engineer?
That's the greatest thing I heard all night.
So, fortunately for me, I'm the sound engineer, and I can just pull that out. Yeah.
So you're talking about the really soft spot at the bottom of your larynx.
I held the handle, and he put it in right up against his throat there, at the base of the throat, right at the larynx, and he whispered,
Give me your wallet.
I could hear Mike say, "Give me your wallet" in Italian.
Break out that credit card, buddy.
No, but it was amazing, like the vibrations that came through that rod, just with a little bit of a whisper from 7 foot away.
Wow,
it was amazing.
Wow,
sweet nothing.
His whispers.
You just keep talking me more and more into stealing this rod from you.
Yeah. Most people don't ever get to feel that. And, when you charter me, you fish with the same things that I fish with. I don't have another set of rods. I know a lot of captains that, they don't let them fish with their stuff. But to me, that's part of the experience. Most people will never get to to fish with something like that and never get to experience, okay, is there a difference between a $300 rod and a $15 rod? Well, absolutely. But most people will never feel that because they'll go to Walmart or some other place and they'll buy these cheap rods. And I'm not knocking anybody else's rods, but that's why Walmart sells them for $6 to $12.
Yeah.
Okay. They mass produce them. They're not spined. My rods are spined. How many times have you seen somebody take a spinner and turn it upside down?
Hey, Al, I think I'm the only one around this table that knows what the spine is of a rod. Do you want to explain that?
Oh, dear God in heaven.
Oh, boy. You might as well call Will a nurse.
Go sit in a beanbag chair again.
Renaissance man.
Okay, we need the nurse to go ahead and tell us about the spine.
Getting deep in here tonight, Will.
Yeah, this is taking a turn. We're not used to this kind of...
Well,
I'm pretty sure I'm the only one at this table that can throw a casting reel. What are we talking about?
The spine of the rod.
Yes, the spine of the rod.
It's funny that you bring up a casting rod and a spinner because the spines are different. Most people don't realize, they think that the blanks are the same.
You didn't know that,
really
did you,
not.
DK?
I did.
I didn't. Go ahead.
That's what I said it.
Every rod has a spine, and all you have to do is pull the tip down, and you'll see how the rod turns. How many of you lost shock rings? The little shock rings pop out of your rods, and you think that you may have hit something or slid it in the gunnel of your boat, and the shock ring popped out.
Oh, at least 3 times a year.
Well, but see, a lot of times that doesn't have anything to do with you hitting anything. You could have broke the glue loose when you hooked a fish, because what happens is when you put pressure on the end of that rod, it's going to twist on you, and if it's not spined correctly. Well, what happens is, because you're holding it, that rod is twisting, and now the guide that's on the front of it, it's going to twist also. And then a lot of times it breaks the glue loose and the shock ring pops out. And it really didn't have anything to do with you. the fishermen, it had to do with whoever spawned the rod to begin with.
Well, that's true. I mean, sometimes when we catch these like big flathead catfish and we're sitting in a kayak where you can't stand up to turn to where they're running, they can twist these rods in some pretty weird angles. You're trying to pull them up. Yep.
So it's almost.
I have actually popped one of the eyelets out. It's during retrieval on a pretty decent flathead.
So let me try to explain
So
it.
it makes total sense.
How I see. I mean, you're an expert in this.
What's your take on it, Dave?
Is that if you're holding a spinning rod, okay, and you're reeling it in lightly with some pressure of a fish, okay, when it goes to turn to the right or the left, those guides should stay towards where that line's going. If you're not holding the grip tight.
If you're holding your reel, and let's just say you just lift the tip straight up, the fish is straight out in front of you. When that fish pulls on that line, that rod is going to turn. Now you may not see it in your hand, but if you look up at the tip, that's where you're going to see it. We went to what is called an A-frame guide that has a little bar that goes across. If you look at that, if you've got that fishing rod there in front of you, if you look at the stripping guide down at the bottom, if you look, there's a little piece of metal that goes across from both parts of the foot. What that does is that keeps that guide from twisting. That was the reason that we went to that, so that if the stuff that I'm having made overseas, let's say they don't spine every one of them correctly, or they're mass producing these. So a lot of times they don't get the stuff that we're building in South Florida right now. Everything that comes out of Dave's shop is nothing but everything is spine. I know exactly that rod is what it's going to do.
Let me back up, Terry. All right, so I don't admit this very often, but DK's right. I don't understand the spline thing now. Are you talking about like when you buy a really good piece of lumber and you hold it up and look down the piece of lumber to see which way it's bowed and warped and torqued to see which piece of lumber you want? When you actually build these rods, you have to know where you have to know the way that it's wrapped, the core, so that you know where to put the eyelets on it. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, that's part of it, yes.
Because I'm trying to understand the building process of how you understand where the strength of that spline is.
Okay, if I was to take just a blank, it has nothing on it.
Right, I have one of those laying right here.
Okay, you can actually take it and put the butt on the table, put your hand about the middle, and take your finger at the tip and just bend the tip. The rod will twist.
Yeah, we just saw that. DK dropped it.
Yeah, it's custom painted too.
Totally twisted the rod.
Exactly as you were narrating.
All right, so we're looking at it right now. He's got it down, and he's got his hand on the tip, and he's got it bent. Where am I looking at?
Okay. Now, like I said, now try why it's bent. Just have him roll it, the middle hand, or that's about in the middle of the rod that's holding the pressure.
Yeah.
Just roll your hand, and you'll feel the spine. It'll automatically snap back to one position, or if it may snap back to two.
Exactly what you're saying. It's snapping back into the same position every time.
Okay.
So I understand what you're saying now.
So now, if you're bending it up, that's the bottom. If I'm on a bait caster, that would become my top. If it was a spinner, that would become the bottom.
And so this rod is correct. So it is. Yep.
Yeah, it's a casting rod with a trigger grip, and you can see like when I didn't have any pressure on the tip, the trigger would be down. When I gave it pressure to make the bend down, the trigger would go up. If that makes sense.
It wants to roll on you.
Yep.
Exactly. And that's showing you where the spine is. On some bait casters, and there's some manufacturers that still do this, they actually spine the rod with a top and a bottom. So you actually can bend that rod either direction. On most of your spinners, though, they only have the spine on one side. So that's one of the things that we always check for, the stuff that we build here in the United States. We spine everything, because I don't want that rod to twist and you have problems. The idea of you spending the money is, I've got people that are just, they've been buying rods from me for 20 years, and they know the quality that they're getting. When I send everything to Stuart now, instead of me doing it, Dave does exactly the same thing that I do. And and we just want to make sure that whoever buys the rod's going to have the best experience possible.
We're going to take a short 5-minute recess because I don't like to be outdone by DK while I go kick the neighbor's mailbox. We'll be right back.
It's only happened like one time, so
I don't like it.
I get it.
I was totally impressed with your demonstration, DK. Touche. 5-minute recess is over. I'm sorry.
That's the second compliment in my life I've gotten from Catfish. So.
Well, enjoy it.
I know.
You're done now.
But
I'm good for a couple months.
I've been loyal to one fishing rod my entire life, and I'm not going to say which one, but I just never got that because I only bought one fishing rod and I have different reels that I like, obviously, and many different.
You swap it out.
Yeah. I have like 30 different fishing rods. They're all the same brand, but many different kinds of reels, from Akuma to Penn and everything else. But this is my first rod behind me that the boys bought me that is not literally that brand of fishing rod. This is a custom fishing rod that they bought me. So to learn some of this and to see the rod that Ryan bought from you and to feel that rod in my hand. So here's a big question for you. Like some of the rods that I have, obviously, I'm fishing for big catfish, circle hooks. They hook themselves. But you can sit in a kayak for hours and watch these rod tips just bounce. And they don't commit till they kill the bluegills, predatory cats. However, was something that is this finesseful at the tip.
Sensitive, yep.
Is this something that would benefit me in hookups or knowing when that, instead of just guessing, waiting for the rod tip to just go over and stay over, is it something I'm going to be able to know when that fish actually took that bait?
Yeah, see, it's like down here, have you flounder fish at all?
I do, absolutely, yep.
Okay. If you live bait flounder fish, say with a mullet or a mud minnow or any type of white bait, a flounder will actually grab a hold of that and hold on to him, and he'll drown him.
Well, he tears him in half every time I miss him.
Right. He'll turn that bait around, and he'll bite the head off and spit it out. Okay? You can literally feel. Now, I'm not going to normally wait that long, but I can normally feel when he starts to turn that fish around in his mouth. I mean, they're that sensitive.
I can't feel that with my rods. I need 2 of your rods right away.
Well, and see, now let me ask you this. This is something else. Now, the one Ryan bought is a lighter rod. I think it's a 7-foot or 7. I was trying to remember what you bought.
It was the 7-foot.
Okay, but are you using a heavier rod? Or the manufacturer that you're using now? Is it a medium heavy?
It's a medium heavy. It's probably like 7'3", 7'4", 7'6".
Medium heavy, 10 to 20, 12 to 25. What's your line weight?
I have right now I have 20 pound on it.
Okay. Whether or not you bought like the rod that Ryan bought, the 7-foot, I think that's a 7-foot medium heavy.
Yeah, fast action.
If you were to buy the heavy, the sensitivity is exactly the same.
Really?
I don't care how heavy you go. When you get up even into the 20 to 40 line class, the 15 to 30s, the 710s, the 8-footers, they're all just as sensitive. The carbon fiber and I understand why a lot of these companies can't go to the carbon fiber yet is because it's like turning a aircraft carrier. You can turn it, but it's going to take you a while. You can't just turn on a dime.
Sure.
Well, these companies are already in the process of what they've already allotted the money to come out with, and so on and so on. So they can't change. But the smaller companies, why they're not going to the carbon fiber? I went from between 40 and 50% breakage to less than 20%. So why wouldn't you want to go with something that is more durable and is going to last you longer?
Right.
And the sensitivity is increasing.
And exactly. Years
Just
ago,
when we got
if you,
DK.
Yeah.
if you bought a broomstick, it was a broomstick. Nowadays you can buy a broomstick, and if I'm talking a real heavy rod, it can be just as sensitive as something that's a medium light.
Sure. Well, I guess for me, I've always, my entire life I've fished with feeling the line instead of the rod, and I've got to retrain myself with that. I'm always got my fingers on the line, whether I'm holding it with 2 fingers, got 1 finger up on it. I'm constantly trying to feel what the fish is doing through the line instead of the rod.
I think the rods you typically use are fiberglass.
A lot of them are. Yep.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with the blends. The problem was with the blends was they wanted to go lighter. So the only way that you can go lighter on the blends is to get rid of the fiberglass. Right. Well, the fiberglass is what gives you the strength.
Yeah.
So if you get rid of the strength, now it becomes brittle. The difference between carbon fiber and graphite is what the temperature it's heated to. Graphite is heated to an extreme temperature. So when you remove that fiberglass from it, you now have something that has been heated to a really high temperature, and it becomes brittle. Carbon fiber is not heated to that extreme, and plus it's a 14-step process of how they wrap the mandrel. So if you're familiar with carbon, like say in fiber mesh in concrete, instead of putting wire in concrete, they put fiber mesh because it actually goes back and forth. It's not just a bar running down it, and so it actually gives it that strength that the steel gives, but it's a different way. Same thing with this, and I think that's where a lot of these companies are missing out on, is that it is a superior product. And I tell people, I said, I wouldn't knock G. Loomis, I wouldn't knock Shimano, I wouldn't knock St. Croix. They're all good products. They really are. But if I told you what they were building those $600 rods for, it'd freaking blow your freaking mind.
Oh no, I can see that.
But you're paying for the name. Okay, I wanted a quality rod that competed on that level, but I didn't want a $600 rod.
Right.
To me, when you just eliminated over half of your clientele because
easy.
How many people can afford that?
Well, I can buy 4 rods for that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And not only that, like I tell company, if you're going to walk around, like at the show, I was telling people, well, we're going to walk around and check things out. And I'd go, hey, great, do that. But when you walk around, just ask them what their product's made of. If they tell you that it's a high module, it's a blend. It's not a carbon fiber. It's a blend.
And it's mass produced.
And it could be. Yeah. It could be. It's very possible. But the thing is just a few questions and you can eliminate companies that are, we had a couple at the show, and I'm not going to name their names, but actually stood up and were telling people that they were selling carbon fiber. And they would come to me and I go, I tell you what, you take this over there, you hold both of them in your hand, and you tell me which one is carbon fiber and which one is a blend, because you can literally tell the difference just in the weight.
I just have a weird thought process, and we'll get right back to it. Are we making arrows in the archery industry out of carbon fiber now? We are, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. And that's where, Terry, my knowledge.
The ones we saw at ATA when that guy put it in the bending booth and it would not snap.
Yes.
He bent it into a damn near circle before it broke.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That's exactly right.
I'm sorry, Terry. Go ahead.
That's a gold.
And not only that, but it makes it. But the old arrows weren't as accurate because of how they flexed. The carbon fiber stays true, so the arrows. And it works the same way in the fishing industry. It becomes a truer product as far as the sensitivity.
Sure.
What you're seeing with the arrows.
He showed us that under extreme slow motion, how that arrow flexed compared to the carbon fiber arrow. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That was a demo from Gold Tip, and that's where my knowledge of carbon fiber and the spine of the rod is similar to the spine of an arrow.
You're probably the only one sitting around this table that knows anything about carbon fiber. I wasn't going to say anything. DK started down that road.
Well, the spine of the arrow is what I thought whenever they were talking about the spine of the fishing rod, and then I wasn't sure I knew it.
It's exactly the same.
It's exactly the same thing, except
then
some of your arrows.
DK.
Some of your arrows will actually have a spine on both sides, And the reason being is they don't want that arrow to flex at all.
Right.
So what they're trying to do is eliminate that. And so they could actually have two spines, just depending on the quality of the carbon fiber.
Well, the technology that was in those arrows, I know a little bit more about archery than I do fishing rods, but I can totally, like it all clicked now. It totally, I understand where the difference is in the strength and durability that you're talking about.
I needed my rod spined right just for the simple fact when I whip it at something.
Yeah.
I want it
Like
to
when
be.
you throw it.
I want it to be true.
Well,
It can't cast for you.
but see that I tell people all the time the reason that I started building the lighter rods is because I have bad arthritis, and when you fish these tournaments, you'll make 1,000 to 1,500 casts a day like it's nothing, and by the end of the day I'd be so wore out from holding some of the heavier rods that my hands would hurt me. And so I kept looking for something that would help me with that. That's why I went with that palm grip, the palm grip, and then I went with trying to find something lighter.
No, totally get that. When we get out of the ocean and I'm just throwing, I'm throwing gotcha plugs for stripers off the beach, and I'm walking the beach. Absolutely, at the end of the day, my shoulder feels like it's broken. Yep.
You're wore out, and that was one of the reasons to just keep looking for something that was better. What I don't understand is why, I'm always looking for the edge, just like you were talking about with the arrows. I mean, how many people are still using the old arrows? Okay, they obviously haven't used the new ones if they're still using the old ones.
Right.
Because how can you go back to an inferior product? And I, people tell me all the time, like we had people coming up to us at the show, where were you guys last year? 2 years ago, we bought these rods and blah, blah. And, we need to know where we can get more. And that was really a great feeling because we started seeing people that didn't understand this technology and that had never seen it. See, down here, it's becoming secondhand. Everybody's, I've seen that. Yeah, it's no big deal. But up there, it was like a whole new. We were introducing it to a whole different group again.
I'm hearing about this for the first time, and I
just hadn't seen it.
No, I didn't see it at the show. I feel lost now. Like I spent 9 days there, and was I stuck buying corn dogs somewhere? Where was I at?
Getting the crab cakes.
Well, Florida also has like the big. I don't know what you want to component.
Fountain of Youth.
No, but that too. But
Orange groves.
Those. No, but it's the components industry is based in Florida. If you buy custom rod parts, the big companies that sell those are in Florida. So,
yes, they are.
So you guys are definitely ahead of the curve. I mean,
so you save money on shipping.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that's where you were going with that.
Exactly.
Before we go,
I can't buy any parts. They're too expensive to ship.
Before we go any further, Terry, just because I'm about ready to get on the computer here as soon as we're done, what would you suggest for me for a largemouth bass rod from you?
Are you pitching? You drop shotting? You throwing a shaky head? What do you like to fish with?
Just keep going. I do all that. Just whatever. Let me restart. Let me start with a topwater. Let me start with a topwater rod. That's my first love. Topwater spring. I'm throwing. Okay. I'm throwing topwater.
How far do you want to throw it?
How far?
Are you working a lake that you can make a good long cast?
Oh yes.
Are you working a creek that is narrow? Because to me,
both.
That's one of the things that I like about, and I was telling Ryan this, you can pitch this rod as far as you can throw it overhand. It's not about how hard we're so used to having to throw as hard as I can with my arm. Instead, these carbon fiber blanks, if you let them load up, if you fly fish, the first thing they teach you is a 10 to 2.
No, I don't
because
fly
they
fish.
want you. They want you to load the rod though. They want you to learn to load it and release. Well, the same thing with these. I tell people all the time, the first cast you make with one of my rods, all I want you to do is put the rod at your straight up on your forehead and just flip your wrist. Do not use any of your arm, and watch how far it goes.
You know, I wish Mike would have told me that in the casting demo, but no, he let me go.
He told the next guy.
Thanks, Mike.
Actually, when Stevie got up there, he told him that.
Wait till I see Mike again. I'm telling you.
I fish a lot of lakes where I have long dams that I can throw across that are 300-400 yards across. So, you know, distance isn't a problem. But really,
how heavy is the bait you're throwing topwater? Is it a skitter? Is it a skitter walk? Is it a spook? Is it a?
I throw a lot of heating spooks, and I throw a lot of
Whopper.
A lot of mid-sized whopper ploppers.
Oh, the whopper plopper is great.
Yeah.
7, 8, 10 to 20. You can throw it so far you won't be able to see the whopper plopper plopping.
Here's
about a toad runner?
Wait a minute. Here's the problem that I have with that, though, because you can't set the hook at that distance. Not on topwater.
You can with the toad runner.
Well,
I don't know about that.
How would you know?
Are you using mono or are you using braid?
Both. I have both setups, and you can't hook up on either one of them at 60 yards.
You can on my rod.
Well, that's what I'm asking. That's what I want to know.
Is that because you're proposing him like getting a faster action rod, or is the action different? Are you thinking for the hookup?
You know, everybody goes, "Oh, I want fast. I want fast. I want fast."
Uh-huh.
And actually, you don't really want fast. You want a moderate to fast. You want something that's got enough. Like for me, when I trout fish, I trout fish, redfish, and flounder fish all in the same places. I can catch all three fish. So I have a 7.2, 8 to 15 that I fish for all of those, but I won't throw topwater with them. My 7.2, my 7.8, 10 to 20s, my medium heavies, those are the ones I'm going to throw my topwater and stuff with because of how that flex is.
Sure.
On a trout bite, I that point, I do want a faster tip because I don't want to rip that bait out of that, or rip the fish's mouth. Because a lot of times people get upset with braid because first of all, they don't have the drag set right. They're not, they go to set the hook, they're using the wrong rod, and it just rips the hook right out of the fish's mouth.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that I'm looking for. Like the whopper plopper I'm throwing right now, I'm throwing this. I want to say it's the 3.5. I think it is. What is it? Is there two sizes of them now, or is there three?
There's actually 4. You're probably throwing the 180.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm throwing. And I'm telling you, with braid. Now I can't get the distance with the mono out of it as I do with the braid, but with that 7, 8, 10 to 20 that is similar to what Ryan's got, I'm telling you, when you feel him, you can set the hook.
Well, here's the problem I'm having, Terry. Let's run through a scenario. I can throw 180 perch colored whopper plopper 40, 50 yards. If I'm trying, I'm throwing my shoulder out, and decent rod, amazing pen reel, using braid. I can hook up every time on braid. It doesn't give as much.
Right. No
the problem with my braid and with my setup is that when I get that fish into the last 15 yards, sometimes I lose the fish because I'm using heavier braid, and it doesn't have the give. And my rod's stiffer, so I don't have it. However, I use the same exact. I have 2 identical rods. I use the same rod, put 20-pound mono on it. I can't throw as far, but I don't get the hookups far out. But I never lose a fish under 30 yards and in. They're on the bank. They don't have a chance. But I miss more hookups out further with the mono. But so I can hook them at 50, but I can't seem to put them in my hand. Is it the line? It's not the blower. Yeah. Is it the rod?
I would think it was your line. Now you could, and like I said, you could have a lot of flex on your tip. That can also, I don't know if you're Bill dancing him, when you jerk the hook and the fish comes flying out of the water or not.
No, but, I like to fight them.
But the stiffer the rod, the better the hook set should be. I just think that the action plays more of a role in that than anything, and of course, then your line. The mono is always going to stretch further, and braid now today there's really no stretch in it at all, and it's pretty. Once you set that hook, I don't have to set it hard.
No, that's what the wonderful part about fishing topwater with braid is. Absolutely.
But now, are you throwing any? Are you throwing any fluorocarbon with it, or are you tying directly to it?
Where I'm fishing, because there is some vegetation, I'm tying directly to it because I don't want to lose the lure, and sometimes I do have to cut through some grass lily pads. The braid seems to do that pretty well if I get wrapped around something.
Yeah, it'll normally pull through. That's why I was wondering if you were using a fluorocarbon, because a lot of times that fluorocarbon can become your weak link. But it also will help how the lure floats in the water as far as when you're working it.
I've been baffled on multiple big bass this past summer. Let's go this past summer. Multiple big bass at 15 yards to the bank. I fought this fish for multiple minutes. I fought them for 20 yards because they're far away. But with the braid, I lose more fish in the last 15 yards with the braid than I do with the mono.
Really?
Yep, absolutely, every time. And actually, I'm continually studying this process because they're not jumping and throwing the hook. I'm losing them under the water, and they don't do anything. I'm reeling, I'm fighting. And Terry, it's like a snap your fingers. It's like they're not there. Nothing happened. They're just not there.
That's usually when Stevie yells, "Quit horsing."
It's baffling. It's baffling to me. I've caught a lot of bass on topwater in my life, but with braid, I seem to lose more fish at the bank than I do with mono. So, but with mono, I can't cast as far. I can't get to where they are without spooking them on these dams, and I'm not, getting the proper hook sets I need at short distances, so I need a happy medium.
He's making an argument to steal my rod.
I'm making an argument where I'm asking Terry, backing up to what rod do I need to go order online right now upstairs?
I would do a 7/8, 10 to 20 medium heavy. And the reason being is that 7/8, 10 to 20, and it's the CB 710, 8 to 20. There's a difference between your crankbait rods, your jigging rods. When I first started building, I built things specifically for whatever I was fishing for. Just like what you're talking about with topwater, I have a topwater rod. That's the only thing that I tie on that rod. I don't tie anything else on it.
Exactly.
But then I got to where I realized that rod, that 7/8, 10 to 20, is also a good jigging rod.
Yeah.
If you're jigging straight up and down,
or a little
just
bit
because
heavier.
of how. Yes. Or you could go to even a heavier, a 12 to 25 rather than the 10 to 20. But I also have a crankbait rod that's a 12 to 25 that feels like a medium heavy rather than a heavy.
Right.
You're still going to have that sensitivity.
The 7'8" medium heavy for topwater. What numbers did you say were on it?
Yeah, the one that I would suggest is the 7/8, 10 to 20. Either we have it in the Shoreline series or we have it in the regular. But it's a CB 7/8, 10 to 20. And I don't tell people this a lot of times, but the CB stands for crankbait.
Gotcha.
I don't want somebody to get so hooked up on, okay, well, I can only throw a crankbait. And a lot of bass guys, if you say, oh, I fish redfish with that, they won't buy it.
Right,
because
it's not a bass rod.
It's not a bass rod. But if I tell them, oh, man, this is my bass rod, but I catch redfish on it, they're okay with that.
Yeah, it's a psychological mind.
It is, and it becomes, and that's why people ask me, so, well, why do you do a 7.2 instead of a 7 foot or a 7.3? Because those are the bass guys came up with those, and they recognize those off numbers. So when they're looking for them, they look for the 7.3s, the 7.8s, the 7.10s.
Yeah.
But what I would look at is if I was losing fish at the boat. The initial hook set is to me is where you're losing the fish, even though that fish is swimming. Just like, for instance, a flounder. How many times have I'm hooked up on a flounder, you got a nice one, you get to the boat and he just opens his mouth.
Yeah, he's gone.
And he's gone, and you're like, what just happened?
Oh, I don't say that. I say worse things than that.
Well, I think we all do at times. But it's that initial. I'll give you an example. I had a buddy that was throwing the 6 to 12. Well, the 6 to 12 is it's an SJ 6 to 12, which is a faster tip. Well, he wasn't getting the hookups that I was getting with the 7/8 8 to 15. And he goes, "What's the difference?" And I go, "Well, that's an extra fast, and this is a moderate to fast." So I immediately have more backbone into that fish. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So that's what gave you the hookup, a little stiffer.
Exactly, yep. And it's that initial. And the other thing is you carry. I'm a real firm believer on hook sharpeners. I keep one around my neck all the time I'm on the boat, because even out of the package, that hook can still be dull.
Yeah. Well, let me stop you right there. Good. I'm not going to say the hooks on all lures aren't perfect, because they're not when you buy them. And we had a really awesome guy on our show. Maybe you heard of him. His name's Larry Dolbert. He invented the Whopper Plopper.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now the 180 is probably one of the best bass lures I've ever thrown for topwater in my life. Ranks right up there with the Titans of Heat Spooks. However,
and the Toad Runner.
And the Toad, yeah, I haven't done that yet, but I really enjoy, not because they're horrible, but I feel like I'm getting better hook sets by putting one size smaller trebles on them, different hooks. So It is true when you do buy new lures, I feel like the hook set's not always perfect on every lure. You can adjust the hooks on them to suit what you're fishing for. So I totally agree with that. Not all treble hooks are created equal.
Yeah, and I just think that you can always, it's just like when you sharpen your knife. I sharpen my knife sometimes even when the knife don't need it. So just like my hooks, I want to make sure that actually what I'm doing when I sharpen my hooks is I'm eliminating me.
Right. Right.
Well, I didn't say that right. I'm eliminating everything but me. Okay, so if the hook setup isn't good, it's because of me. Because the hook's sharp, the rod's doing what it's supposed to do. So the only other aspect of this is me.
Yeah.
So,
and I've been saying that. I said that all last summer. Every time I lost a fish, I was like, "It's Terry's fault."
Yeah. That's going to be my excuse all summer. You know what?
I eliminated every possibility but Terry.
I can see it's frustrating to me since we're almost out of time, and I can talk to Terry all night. I can talk to you all night since I didn't get to meet you at the show. I have to hook up and talk in person when we have more time.
Didn't you get to meet him?
I did not.
It's unfortunate.
Well, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, boss.
I mean, I did.
We spent quite a bit of time at his booth.
I was over there every
several days.
I had.
Yeah. And to tell you the truth, we were really wanting them to leave, but they just never would leave the booth.
That happens sometimes.
They were giving us T-shirts just to get us out of there.
Here these guys come again. What did y'all give them? Did y'all put catnip over here or something?
It was like Mean Joe Green in the tunnel. It was just they whipped a T-shirt at us. Hey kid,
Terry.
Now we try to have. I mean, Mike he's a special guy. He's special, man. Let me tell you.
I've been saying that about him.
We have so much fun. I mean, we really do. We have a lot of fun. The shows are long and you're drug out, and you can make them as bad as you want them to be. But we just have fun, and if we sell rods, then it's a plus. So.
That's awesome.
Well, you know what? We've been doing this podcast for a long time. And the 100+ episodes that I've talked to fishermen, there's two things that have happened tonight that have never happened. I now will get off this microphone and we'll go buy these rods tonight on the computer before I leave here because I can't wait to see. Because you made me. I mean, knowing about the archery aspect and what I saw at ATA with the arrows versus what you're saying about the technology of the rods versus what I've held in my hands of Ryan's rod. Now I need them. 2, DK taught me something.
They're going to ruin you.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. They'll ruin you. And they go, what do you mean? I'm telling you, they're going to ruin you because you're going to rig up 4 or 5 rods and you're going to keep changing that bait on that rod because it's going to become your favorite.
No, I'm not. Once I buy 2 and I like them, I'll have 16 of them.
Hey, I like that even better.
I'm looking forward to having that problem. Yeah.
Thanks for teaching me something, DK. I appreciate that.
Hey, no problem, bud.
Yeah.
Well, he's the engineer, right?
He is.
Nah. No,
he's the nurse.
The sanitational engineer.
No, I've dabbled in building some of my own rods, so some of the lingo you were talking about is a little familiar to me, and it was great to pick a brain of a actual professional rod builder.
No, it was. I felt like I hoarded this whole show, but if anything can put more of these topwater bass on my lap, I want to know how to do it.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, we've picked Terry's brain, but just like we've only picked the surface.
That's what I said.
Of Terry's brain, and I feel like
better
we
than
did.
picking his nose.
Yeah.
I feel like we did the world an injustice.
Y'all don't take too much though, because I ain't got left. So.
But
y'all
Terry,
keep picking at it, and it's going to disappear.
I'll be honest. I feel like we did the world an injustice. We didn't even get to talk to you about the charter that you guys offer and the guide service that you've got. And we're actually up against time now, so we can't even get into it. So the good news for us and everyone else listening is we're going to get you back on.
Hang on. Before we get you back on, though, Terry.
Okay.
It's Uncle Buck.
Do it.
I have to ask you a question.
Oh, boy.
Here we go.
Okay.
You fished for how many years?
Oh, my gosh. I just turned 58, so I'd say I've been fishing probably at least 56 of them.
There you go.
What's the one fish you haven't caught yet that you want to catch?
Ooh,
I have to hear about the bucket list fish.
Yes.
Well, a lot of guys, they want to go catch a black marlin or something like that. I want a big bonefish.
Nice.
And I want to catch him on fly.
There you go.
And the reason I want to catch him on fly is because I've caught bonefish, and if you've never caught a bonefish that's 10 inches long can run 100 yards off your rod like it's nothing. So if you catch one that's say bigger than that, 8 to 10 pounds, it's like you got a whale. I mean, it's just phenomenal how much line they can run off in just a matter of seconds.
Those is you, Steve.
I've caught a lot of sailfish, and I've caught a lot. I've got a blue. I don't have a black. I do have a white. So there those kind of things. I don't really look. I don't know, what am I trying to say? I don't care to go offshore as much anymore. I mean, I've been offered tuna trips and that sort of thing, but I have more fun with, let's say, a 43-inch snook. Or even some small dolphin, but the type of fishing that I do, I'd rather fight the fish for a couple of minutes. I mean, I like to tarpon fish, but once you caught 40 or 50 tarpon, you're pretty much done with it.
Yeah, I heard that.
Doesn't Captain Casey Bones fish flies for bonefish?
Redfish.
Redfish.
I think she does a week or 2 in the Bahamas for bonefish.
That's what I thought.
Bonefish and permit.
Yeah.
Oh man, permit is another one. That's, if you've never caught a permit on they're a lot
Permit
of fun.
the frog.
Permit
the fish.
No, I guess I've been lucky in my life. I've got to fish a lot of different places, and I've caught a lot of fish. I've caught the peacocks. Now I would like to go to Brazil and catch the really big peacocks.
Yeah. Now Terry, now you're talking on top water.
Yeah. On either that or we were throwing 8-inch plugs. Diving plugs.
Do me a favor. Call back on the podcast when you decide to go do that, because I'm not just going to tag along, but I'm going along. with your rods, and that's gonna be a great testimonial. So I'm inviting you. I'm inviting you to me inviting myself.
You gotta go so I can go.
We definitely need to set it up because that's a heck of a trip. I do have a buddy of mine that owns High Roller. He used to. I don't know if High Roller Lures are still around, but he had High Roller Tours, I think, and they actually did a trip to the Amazon, and he catches. I mean, we're talking some 20-pound peacock bass.
Yeah, tanks.
Some of the biggest ones I've ever seen.
Stop it.
Oh my gosh,
Stop
man.
teasing him.
Probably using a tow runner.
I couldn't imagine how long we'd have to hear about Will's 20-pound peacock.
I mean, you've heard about my 6-pound.
He caught a 6-pound peacock.
It was like 5.5 last week. What's the deal?
It wasn't 5.5.
That was like 12
It's in
years
Florida,
ago.
bud. It's growing.
Hey man, that peacock is going to keep growing. That's why it's a peacock.
Well, it will never be less than 6. I'll tell you.
It was a tank for Florida. Yep.
Now, let me ask you: are there pictures of this fish?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Quite a
But
few.
Pictures,
okay.
video.
No picture of the scale. That's where it's,
It's quite a famous picture on the internet.
Oh man.
So is this one he's holding? He's got extensions for his arms, and he's
Yes.
holding it so far away that it looks really big.
I had to hold it away from me. I was scared of it.
Yes.
It took a swipe at me, and I ran.
I'm a professional fish judger. Honest to God, I thought it was 8.5. They don't blame me.
It was big.
It was a big
I mean, regardless of this, I'm not.
This just proves my point.
Yeah,
Keeps getting bigger.
it was like 6 pounds like 2 minutes ago.
That's why I bought you guys all fish scales for Christmas. So we're done with this conversation.
Exactly. And we have a new rule. You have to take a picture of the fish scale right with it. So.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, and Terry, much as I expected, this was a fantastic conversation, and we definitely got to have you on. I guess
thanks for having me.
maybe next time we'll give Mike a chance to get on.
Yeah, it would be fun.
But before I ask everybody where they can find you at, Terry, and follow along with everything that's going on at T. Allen, I wanted you to just do me a favor, let your son Matt know I was actually able to find the Tsunami Shield reel to put on that rod that I got from you guys. So I followed his recommendation, and I put the right reel on that rod. So I got a hell of a combination that I'm going to be fishing with this summer.
Are you guys going to be at the show in 2019?
Let's see. Yes, we are. As a matter of fact,
Okay,
we
well,
already signed up.
For all of our listeners, I'd highly suggest, no matter what, schedule 20 minutes to talk to these guys, because just like we were talking around this table tonight with you guys are just the same. You guys are the same people at the show. I mean,
Absolutely.
20 minutes can go by like that.
I'd say pencil in an hour.
Yeah.
Easy an hour.
Get yourself a milkshake and then go talk to them, and you'll have a good time. And they'll give you all the tips that we just got tonight. So
I'm dumbfounded. I'm taking DK's advice twice in one night.
Yeah. You know, I don't
You've
claim
been
to know.
deeked.
I don't claim to know everything, and I can always be taught something. But if I've got information that I can help somebody with, I'm willing to share it. There's no secrets in this business. Now, as far as things that companies do, as far as guide placements and all that, we all do something different. I really believe that's what has improved my product. Doug Hannon thought the same thing. So I'm always willing to learn. If you can show me something, hey, show it. I'm not so stuck that I can't show me something new and learn. If you got a knot you can show me that's smaller or better than what I'm tying, hey, I'll be tying it.
Well, take your trebles off all of your all of your top waters and knock them down 2 sizes.
2 sizes on the whopper plopper, huh?
On every top water plug you have.
I got another thing for you. If you got a medium heavy, super sensitive rod that you need to name, can we call that the DK?
The DK. The Deek. It's called the Deek.
Oh, DK.
Yeah, you got it. I got this.
Call it Deek.
Yeah.
The Deek.
I got this medium heavy, super sensitive.
We'll get Roland Martin fishing that.
So are you
Fishing
calling
the Deek.
Are you calling me medium heavy?
What?
And super sensitive. But
Very sensitive.
They call you David Kyle, do they?
Oh my goodness. Terry, thanks for being on our show. We really
Thank you
appreciate
for having
it,
me,
boss.
guys. I appreciate it. It was great meeting you guys at the show, and Ryan, I appreciate everything you did. And please don't think another. My beard is nothing but hair. It took me 4 months. It took me 4 months to grow that. I can grow another one. It don't bother me a bit. The amount of money they made me at the show was well worth me shaving the beard.
Perfect.
But just so you know, Ryan, that before you bought that rod, they were already over.
you were bamboozled.
You know, just for the record, I'd have bought 2 if they told me they were short by 2, so it's all right.
Nice. But no, don't lose any sleep, which I'm sure you're not. But don't lose any sleep over it, because, like I said, anymore, the older I get, it grows everywhere except on the top of my head. So
I heard that.
That is the truth.
Second that.
All right, Terry.
if I can help you guys, just let me know. If you got any questions about any of if you go on the website, don't get hung up on the website on just looking at fresh water and salt water. The rods are interchangeable across the board, so if you don't find something in the freshwater side, you may find it in the saltwater side.
Perfect.
So and vice versa. So,
Terry, thank you so much, bud. We really appreciate all the time you spent with us. Where can folks find you and everything they need to know about T. Allen Rods and Charters?
www.tallenrods.com. And if you have any questions, just call the 1-800 number. You'll get one of us. Sometimes you'll get me. But if you want to talk to me, just ask for me. And if I'm not in the office, leave a number, and I'll be glad to talk to you about anything. I love talking fishing. That's what I live for. So any way I can help you guys, just let me know. Or any of your listeners, if you have any questions, please give me a call and give me a chance to answer them.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Terry. And guys,
thanks, guys.
Where can they find
Enjoyed
us?
It.
You can find us at www.ruttenriverpursuit.com. You can find us at Rutten River Pursuit on Instagram, R2 Pursuit on Twitter, Rutten River Pursuit on Facebook, Rutten River Pursuit Podcast on YouTube.
Oh, my.
Follow us individually. Look up R2 Ryan Madera, R2 Buck, Uncle Catfish, R2 Kyle. Is it his?
That's great you got your name wrong.
No, not me. Talk Kyle.
R2 David Kyle.
R2 David Kyle
I gotta
on
switch
Facebook.
Mine's actually at Darkwater737, so I have to switch it up.
We're working on it.
On
Uncle
Instagram,
Catfish
so
on Facebook.
we're still waiting for 2 more, but keep looking for those. They'll come soon. Guys, awesome podcast.
Great job, fellas.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Rig 'em weedless.
Peace.
You can have a garage full, bud, but you can't have mine. Mine's special. I call it the Beard Shaver 3000.
Let's let this man get to bed.
There you go. the Beard Shaver 3000.
I'm coming out.
It's called a DK.
The Deek. He put the tip of that rod right up, like, Will, you're a nurse. You know the larynx.
I'm not a nurse.
I'm trying to help you out. Physician.
Is he also the engineer?
That's the greatest thing I heard all night.